For almost 2,000 years, people have asked the same question. Was Jesus a real man who really walked on real dirt roads? Or is he just a story? Historians and archaeologists have found and dug out several bones. These bones were buried with nails driven through the feet and fingers. Some have even found the grave of the man who gave the final order for Jesus to be crucified. So, in this video, we are going to walk through his whole life. From a small stone house dug into a hill to a nail pounded through a human heel bone. Some of what we find will surprise you. Let's start with a question. How do you even study the life of a man who lived 2,000 years ago? Historians do not use guesswork. They use rules, the same ones used to study any ancient king or general. One rule says that if a story shows up in many different old writings that don't copy each other, it is more likely true. Another rule says that if a detail is embarrassing and no one would make it up on purpose, it is probably real too. Keep those two rules in your head. We are going to need them. Jesus was born somewhere between 7 BCE and 4 BCE, before what we now call Year 1. That lines up with the final years of a harsh king named Herod. He grew up far from any palace, in a tiny farming town called Nazareth. For a long time, some people doubted this town even existed back then. Then, archaeologists dug into a hillside and found something that changed the argument completely. Buried under an old church, they found a real first-century home, carved partly into rock, built from local stone by people who had almost nothing. This was not a fairy tale palace. This was where Jesus grew up, and now we can actually stand inside it. But the story does not really start moving until Jesus meets a strange man in the desert. His name was John the Baptist. He lived out in the wild, ate simple food, and screamed one loud message: "Get ready, because judgment is coming." And Jesus walked right up to him and asked to be baptized. Here is where the second rule matters. Baptism means washing away sin. Followers later claimed Jesus was without sin at all. So why would they invent a story where their perfect leader kneels down to be cleaned by another man? They would not. That is exactly why historians trust this moment. It is too awkward to be fake. But before we go further, you need to understand the world Jesus was born into. It was not calm. It was not simple. Judea sat under Roman control, and the Jewish people were split into groups that all disagreed on how to survive it. There were the Pharisees, who wanted everyone to follow every little rule of the law, down to the smallest detail. There were the Sadducees, rich priests who ran the temple and tried to stay friendly with Rome so they could keep their power. There were the Essenes, who packed up and left society completely, hiding out in the desert and waiting for the world to end. And there were the Zealots, who believed paying taxes to Rome was a betrayal of God, and they were ready to fight and die to prove it. Jesus grew up right in the middle of all that tension, and his teachings landed right inside it too. After that river, everything changed. Jesus picked 12 followers, not a random number. 12 stood for something old, the 12 original tribes of his people. He did not walk into big, fancy cities either. He skipped the shiny Roman towns completely and went straight into small villages, teaching in tiny stone synagogues. Archaeologists have found these exact kinds of buildings too, simple rooms with stone benches, sitting quietly in the dirt for 2,000 years, waiting. His message was short but heavy. The kingdom of God is coming. Love God, love your neighbor. Then he pushed it even further. Love people who hate you. Help people that everyone else ignores. He told this through parables, little farming stories that flipped the world upside down for anyone listening. And people said he could heal the sick and cast out evil. Historians cannot prove miracles happened, but they agree on something important. The people around him truly believed they saw it happen. And that belief is what made him famous. Now here is where the story turns dangerous. Jesus and his followers walked into Jerusalem during Passover, the busiest, most tense week of the year. The city was packed. Anger at Rome was boiling just under the surface, and Jesus walked straight into the temple and flipped over tables. This was not just anger over money changing hands. Historians call it an acted-out warning, a living symbol. He was showing, right there in public, that the whole system was about to fall apart. And the men running that temple understood the threat immediately. The high priest, a man named Caiaphas, moved fast. Jesus was arrested at night in a garden, handed over, accused of calling himself a king, which was not just religious talk, that was treason against Rome itself. A Roman leader named Pontius Pilate made the final call: death by crucifixion. For centuries, some historians doubted parts of this story too. No proof that Pilate was even real. No proof that Caiaphas existed. No hard evidence of Roman crucifixion at all. Then, the ground started giving up its secrets. In 1961, workers digging near an old Roman theater found a broken stone slab. It had been reused as a step, just an ordinary piece of a staircase, forgotten for centuries. But carved into the front was Pilate's own name and his real Roman title. Proof, in stone, that he was not a legend. He was a real governor who really ruled that land. And Pilate was not done showing up in the dirt. In 2018, scientists finally managed to read tiny letters on an old copper ring dug up decades earlier at one of Herod's fortresses. Around a small carved cup, the ring spelled out one word: Pilato. Most experts think it belonged to someone who worked for Pilate himself, stamping his letters and orders. Almost 30 years later, in 1990, something even stranger happened. Workers building a water park accidentally broke through the roof of an old hidden tomb. Inside were bone boxes called ossuaries. One of them was covered in fancy carved flowers, clearly built for someone rich and powerful. Scratched into the side were the words, "Son of Caiaphas." Inside were the bones of a 60-year-old man. Many historians believe these are the actual remains of the very priest who sent Jesus to his death. And then there is the proof that might be the most chilling of all. In 1968, builders in Jerusalem broke into another ancient tomb. Inside was a human heel bone, with an iron nail still driven straight through it. Wood was still stuck to the tip. A small wooden block was wedged under the nail head, so the man's foot could not slide off while he hung there. Scientists studied that bone for years. At first, they thought both feet were nailed together. Later research proved that wrong. Each foot had been nailed separately to the sides of the wooden post. His arms were likely tied, not nailed, with rope. The nail was bent, jammed into a knot in the wood so hard that his own family could not pull it out. They had to bury him with the nail still stuck straight through his heel. This is not from Jesus. This bone belonged to a different man entirely, a young man buried more than 2,000 years ago. And that alone makes it incredibly rare. Rome crucified tens of thousands of people, but almost none of those bodies were ever given a proper burial. Most were simply left hanging or tossed into pits. This one heel bone, saved by a grieving family, is one of only a handful of crucifixion victims ever pulled out of the ground anywhere in the world. Similar finds have turned up in England, Italy, and Egypt, each one adding a small piece to the same brutal picture. But this bone proves that crucifixion was real and brutal, and it left marks that lasted 2,000 years underground, just waiting to be found. So Jesus died, nailed to a wooden beam, just like that unknown man in the tomb. His followers scattered. Some historians say that it should have been the end of the whole story completely. Leaders die all the time in that era. Their followers usually just faded away. But something happened that historians still cannot fully explain. Within days, those same scared, hiding followers were suddenly walking straight back into the same dangerous city that had just executed their leader. And they were saying something wild. They said they saw him alive again. Historians will not claim to have proved that a resurrection happened. That question sits outside what science can measure. But here is what almost every historian agrees on. Those followers were not lying to trick anyone. They sincerely, completely believed it. And that belief is the only thing that explains what happened next. A handful of frightened peasants turned into a movement that spread across the entire Roman world. They even switched their holy day of rest from Saturday to Sunday, just to mark the day they said he came back. Something flipped a switch inside people who had just watched their leader die a horrible public death. So history does not need faith to say this man was real. The dirt itself has already said it for us. A poor boy from a tiny stone house in Nazareth, born into a land splitting apart under Roman rule. A ministry built on parables and healing that spread through villages, not palaces. A riot in a temple that sealed his fate. A stone, a ring, and 2 family bone boxes, all pulled from the same dirt, proving the men who judged him were real. And a nail dug out of a different man's heel 2,000 years later, proving exactly how brutal Jesus' death really was.